I'm Ren Weeden, and this is how you sell without selling out. Roger's that.
I'm Rogers Healing. Welcome to Rogers That, a podcast dedicated to selling without selling out. And today we have someone who I immediately gravitated towards him and his leadership style, his ability to make people feel very comfortable. Where my buddy Ren Weeden, who is on the show today, I was telling him earlier that there's a word that makes me think of him, and that word is consistency. And as a leader and as someone who plays kingmaker for a lot of really special people, from investors to founders to people in the production world, rarely do you find someone that treats people the same way, no matter their background, no matter their status, and no matter their name. And for me, that's what made me want to be friends with Ren. We met through some work-related stuff, which we'll find out about at a later time. But a little bit of background on my pal Ren, other than the fact that he's got the world's greatest hat on and he's a hockey fan. And something tells me that he's not stepping outside with that because it's probably too hot to wear a wool hockey jersey. Ren is an award-winning producer, writer, and director. Born in Baltimore, Ren quickly got out of there as quick as he could, but he discovered his passion for storytelling while pursuing a degree, ready for this, in biomedical engineering. When Ren and I met, it was through TV stuff, and you just assume that's what he wanted to do. I was like, well, what's your background? He's like, biomedical engineering. Not the guess I would have made. He's honed his narrative skills and now lives in the world of storytelling and production, which, again, you're going to see. He's a Wizard of Oz type, and I think that's just so special. But Ren finds a way to bring happiness to every room that he enters. And sometimes happiness is needed when you get news that's not great. And I think that he's found a way to go and mask not great news with a great attitude, which gives people the confidence they need to keep going. His creativity is infectious. His work is mostly with unscripted television shows, ranging from a business type of competitive show to other ones as well. But with all that being said, to me, selfishly, he's my friend. And so I'm excited to share his story and talk about his leadership style, which by the end of our 20-minute conversation, you will learn that it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So Ren, with all that being said, how was the intro?
That was perfect. Oh my God. I need you in my life every day. Just like little narrative as I get up in the morning.
well, for what it's worth, we've kind of been in each other's lives every day since we connected. And
we have.
Now it's becoming official. So, well, man, who is Ren Weeden? What a strong name. It's almost like a band name or even a disease. Oh, I've got the Ren Weeden. What give us the background. What did I miss?
Yeah, no, I mean, you really nailed it on the head. Who is Ren Weeden? That's a great question that I've been trying to figure out my entire life. And who knows if I ever will. He's an evolving creature. He's a storyteller. That's the quick little tagline that I tell people at the bar. But, I'm just the type of guy who been moved around a lot, seen a lot of stuff, met a lot of different types of people, and really learned that there are kind of relative archetypes to who we exist as and who we pretend to be and who we actually are. And I kind of see through it now. And I'm just the type of person to be entertained by everything. And I want to share that type of entertainment. So I honestly am just like a clown, but I like to say storyteller because it's more fancy.
And it's also way easier to say storyteller because you don't have to wear makeup every day.
Yeah.
That would suck. Okay. So there's a lot of cliche questions that come with these conversations, but I'm going to start with one that we usually end with. And I think that you're a storyteller and you're a clown and your mind is always going. As a successful entrepreneur, what are your thoughts on the word balance?
Oh, it's so important.
You answered it with your eyes. Okay, maybe you're going to go a different direction. So it's so important, but yeah, expand on that.
I mean, I think that as like a creator, so as you mentioned, I have a degree in biomedical engineering. So I've spent a lot of my life balancing what I thought was the difference between a left brain and a right brain. I thought that you had to be one or the other, and that if you were both, you had to balance them out perfectly. So I actually spent a long time contemplating with like the idea of balance, studying Confucianism and the Tao and all of that stuff. And then I realized that kind of what balance truly means is just existing as a whole, as a sum of its parts. When you're a creative, for instance, you're constantly trying to take inspiration from anything and pour it into work and then find some form of like transactional relation with that. And it becomes really messy and you lose yourself and you go overboard with your passion. And then inevitably, a lot of times creatives burn out. They sacrifice themselves in the grand scheme of the flame burning brightly. But balancing, realizing that sometimes you need to take a step back. Sometimes you need to remember that the left brain exists, that you need to think logically. That stuff keeps you from going too crazy. But on the same side, when you're too like logical, when I was researching cancer, you just lose existence. You lose like the heartbeat of the soul and the purpose of existing. So it's about
Man, so here's something that you struggle with that I don't. You might be too smart for your own good. And I think that through that, like you and I connected because we have similar personalities. And I think we became friends because we have similar ways of treating people. But maybe my balance is that I always have 1,000 things on my plate and I can never finish it all at once. And I like that. And I'm programmed like that. Like I've been like that since I was a kid. I have to have stuff going on. But yours is that the conversations you're having with inside your head never turn off, which maybe makes it hard to go and find the vertical that you want to pursue. And I'm assuming that's been something you've dealt with. And I might be wrong, but I'm saying like the stuff that you just threw out, like all these different things, especially at a young age, like those are really, really heavy words. And again, you happen to be in the world of media and television production, but how do you fight through that, knowing that maybe you're doing something during the day that is not what you expected to do when you were kind of coming up? Is that a struggle?
No. I think it used to be a struggle not knowing why I wanted to do everything. I had a mentor once who I was struggling. I was in college. I was working during the day at the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and in between, I was going to classes on biomedical engineering and learning about material engineering and how to recycle, blood cells and all this other stuff. And then at night, I would show up to theater rehearsal, and then I would go to my chapter, and I was spreading myself too thin. And I thought to myself, people kept telling me, you need to choose one thing to do, kind of, the depth. But my mentor said, screw that. You don't need to do that. You can do poetry and you can also study cancer. The saying, jack of all trades is master of none, is incomplete. The jack of all trades, master of none is oftentimes better than the master of one, is the full phrase.
Dude, keep going.
No, I mean, that's really what I realized, is that I will never be the type of person to just like choose one thing. I'm like chaotic good. I like to break things down to their core, even to a molecular level, hence the biology, or words, hence the storytelling. And I like to recreate them in a narrative, in a world that I deem fit. I like to relatively play God. That's why I was studying genetics. You know what I mean? But now I'm doing the Lord's work in script writing.
how that, like, that's such. There were so many oxymorons that just hit at the same time, and you find a way to do it successfully. How do you take that to media? Again, like it could be the biggest blessing or the biggest curse. How do you actually take that to your day job? Like what like the internal conflict has to be just crippling.
Yeah, but that's what makes it great.
Okay, well, explain.
It's that it's in struggle that you find like the right path. For me, I've always found the right path is facing towards the wind. You know what I mean? What did I used to tell myself? I used to whisper it in my head in high school. It was it was basically, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it was basically like, when things are hard, when you're struggling, that's when the devil is like trying to mess with you, because you're right at the precipice of greatness. You know what I mean? When you think that that's a closed door, just like go and try to open it or kick it down. You know what I mean? And that's where I found that's where my niche is doing like the weird stuff that most people would be like, well, why would you do that? Why would you want to do a poetry show where people are eating fire? That's kind of crazy. But I'm like, that's a Tuesday for me.
Does it make you want to go learn how to breathe fire? That's where you're.
Oh yeah.
Do you know how to breathe fire?
No, but I'm a fire sign, so I love basking in the elements, right?
How much sleep per night do you need?
Need, or do I get?
Need. Like what's like an optimal amount of sleep?
Anywhere between 4 and 6, just to try to get like 2 sleep cycles in.
Yeah. I would die. I like 7 hours. Okay, fair enough. A true creative. So back
Yeah.
to the true creative part, and I know that you know you've built some really incredible stuff, whether it's through Brandstar, through some of the other stuff that you've done. How do you go and source your version of greatness with maybe the next generation of founders, the next generation of talent, the next generation of leaders, whether it's on television, etc. How do you hone in poetry, Jesus, fire breathing, creative, molecular science, entrepreneur? How do you actually channel all that to make something happen successfully behind the scenes?
Yeah, I call it like my Frankenstein technique. You take the best of everything and you cherry pick, and then you take the weaknesses and you kind of just look forward. It's I took Strengths Quest, which is like a Gallup poll, and one of my greatest strengths is individualization, which is like the ability to take specific parts of things and put them all together. That's just how my brain works. And when it comes to like the future generations, I don't know. I never really thought about that. I don't know. I guess you have to look like behind you to look forward, right? I look at the other people, like what they did. The incredibleness of Orson Welles, who's 25, when he literally shook the nation and everyone thought we were actually under attack.
How do you know who Orson Welles is?
Because I study storytelling. It's not just the stories; it's the art of storytelling. It's
My
the
God.
idea, the principle that this young kid who was 25, who no one knew, had nothing behind his back. That I resonate with, even though he's a white guy. Love him. But no, he convinced the entire nation that we were under attack. It's the beauty of that. How do I create a new genre like Metropolis? Like, how do I invent sci-fi? That's where my head is always at. How do I push the boundaries so that we can just keep going? It's like an inventor. When you invent something, you know that in the future someone's going to invent something better. It's just about inventing the best thing for right now.
But again, back to how we kind of met. How do you take this?
Yeah.
I don't even. Do you have like is Galileo your mentor? I mean, like, who is the person that you're like a walking fortune cookie. Who is the person that you like? For me, if there was one person, there's two people really. The one person that the first time I saw him, not in person, but like Robin Williams, I was like, all right. If I got in the room with Robin Williams, somebody's head would explode. I get it. But like the one person, if I could ever have dinner with anybody other than Jesus, it'd be Jim Henson of the Muppets, because Jim Henson, I think, organically let adults know it's okay to be a kid every day. But for you, if you had to pick one person in the history of mankind that you could sit down and have a conversation with, who is it? It's got to be somebody we know. Like,
Let's
not
see.
personally, but we've heard of them. Marilyn
Monroe. Yep.
Again, such a curveball. Literally.
Yeah, that's my life. Welcome.
Yeah, you're like
I'm obsessed.
You're like, there's a song. There's a song called Meet Virginia. It came out when I was in college by a group called Train, and it's about like this girl that's just like, she doesn't own a dress. Her hair is always a mess. If you catch her stealing, she won't confess. She's beautiful. And you're like the guy. You're like, your name needs to be Virgin or Virgil. Okay, all right. So let's talk about the mind of a leader and someone who you broker excitement for a living. You give people confidence and you find talent. Like, how does that excite you, knowing that a lot of what you have to do, like me, is behind the scenes pushing other people into their greatness? How do you channel that?
I'm just blessed to help tell people stories, to be a part of the story process. In front of the camera, behind the camera, I don't really care. I just get excited to just be a part of it.
That's it. That's the answer.
Come on, that's what gets me going. I love stories.
Okay, a follow up. How do you go and source? Like, how does your mind work when you're looking for people that are the next big thing, or maybe they need the next big push? How do you go and look at that from such a unique angle, where you're not a casting director, you're not a talent scout, but you're taking it with such a unique background? How do you do that effectively, where you're still true to yourself?
It's a technique that I picked up. And it's basically, if you pay attention to tell the best story of like other people's, you have to pay attention to the words that they use to tell their own story, right? Your eyes, your use, the pronouns, the specific subjects, the way that people sentence structure their lives creates like a really interesting subtext within that narrative. So it's about like seeing people for who they are, like vibing out on a spiritual level, And then like mentally thinking, okay, how can I best take someone who is like a bro, you know, someone that I see myself in because I was a frat bro, who I think could like explode and do something incredible. How do I take them and put them on a show with an investor who is also kind of like got bro vibes, but is a lot more mature and mentally can see 10, 15, 20 years into the future? How can I ensure that when I put these like chemicals together, kind of like you would in a chemistry lab, that the reaction is going to be a positive one and it's not going to explode in everyone's face? You know, it could explode, but if it explodes in the right way, then boom, we got an engine going. So it's just about controlling the chaos.
That's good TV.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
Here's a loaded question. You source great deals, great founders, great opportunities, which, like for me, a lot of my world is being a part of like really fun companies like Liquid Death or Goat Fuel, etc. And every once in a while, I'll get that like burn, like there's one called Birdie Bombs. It's a golf centered alcohol shot, or it's a shot. Every once in a while, I'm like, damn, this makes me kind of want to go start my own thing. Do you ever have that stuff going on in your head?
Oh no, God no.
Really?
God, no. No, I in a past life I was a CTO of a company, and I don't have any passion like at all for like business, which is like a strength and a weakness. But I live my life like literally built on like the compass of passion. And if I don't have passion for something, I just like I don't care. Like you could offer me like a $5 million deal to like do all these things like business wise. And I'd be like, I would rather, what did they say? I'd rather polish the doorknobs in heaven than be a king in hell or whatever. Like I'd rather do the crappy stuff knowing that I'm passionate about it than like be doing whatever and I don't like it.
Are you on Team Jesus?
I'm off and on. I grew up in the South. I actually went to a mega church.
I remember you told me we're in Houston.
Yeah, Joel Osteen's church, Lakewood.
Yeah, that is a mega church. Maybe we get you to Team Jesus by the end of this podcast. Okay, so back to getting inside the world of Ren, and maybe we pivot a little bit to TV. You've done some really cool projects, right? And again, am I allowed to ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 27. You
might be the most believably wise 27-year-old I've ever come across. And you talk about in your past life, by the way, you were in college 5 years ago, and just the miles you've got on your shoes are so impressive. But I feel like, again, consistent maybe is not the best word. You're very efficient, and you're a sponge for learning. But talk about the world of TV. Like what like in a dream world, what's the most fun TV show you haven't done that maybe is not out there yet that you want to do?
It's HBO, not TV. Not kidding. So like I said, I'm obsessed with like the narrative art of storytelling, and I want to push that boundary. So I have a TV show that I really want to create, but it is built and written and meant to be produced on a streaming service, so that it's bingeable content. It's like a full gorge of content. The idea is relatively meta. The narrative is kind of like a thriller. It's about the disappearance of Black high school students, both literally and metaphorically. It's a crazy statistic that about like 1 in 5 Black students don't walk across the stage. Now, what does that mean? Are they not graduating? Are they, suffering some form of violence? I don't necessarily know, but the idea was, what if we take that and we personify that as kind of a horror? And then I took it even further and said, the way that we kind of engorge ourselves with Black narratives is insane, both on the Black side and the non-Black side. The way that we kind of sacrifice these characters as like firewood, it's kind of disgusting, and it's reminiscent of things that continuously happen since like the 50s and even before that. So the idea again is to take that understanding, that meta of we consume and we consume and we consume this Black death and this Black body. And then we get this beautiful, 8-episode series that gives us a different perspective. So that's the really cool part, is every episode is a different perspective from a different character. So different coloring, everyone acts differently, the world looks differently. There's 4 Black kids, 4 white kids. It's not just for Black people, it's for everybody, just to see like, this is the narrative of Hollywood, and this is what they're telling us that we need to do. We need to treat each other as firewood to burn our own flame, and that's just like dumb. And so like that's kind of like my ideal. That's the show I'm like, oh, my creme de la creme. And then there's more after that, but that's the one.
It's so hard. Like I usually can keep up with everybody. You left me.
Sorry.
about
Slow
20
down.
minutes ago. No, but it's the passion behind it. And we only have one life to live, right? I remember I went through a unique time in my life when I was about 30, and everyone has advice when you go through a tough time. And somebody told me something that I'll never forget. He's like, life is long. Life is not short. And I feel like you hear that, right? Where someone like you and me hears that, and it's like, there's so much to do. There's so much to figure out, which here's a question for both of us, but specifically you, since you're the guest. Do you have a hard time enjoying when the highs are high?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a tough time. It's almost as if you dissociate. Every time I've ever won an award or got an achievement, things I've worked years for, it's really funny. A lot of people that are really close to me make that joke where they'll be like, "How do you feel?" And I'll be like, "Unsatisfied." Like that song in Hamilton, that's my life.
And of course, did you write Hamilton probably with Lin
No,
Manuel?
God, I wish.
Man. So what do you think that is? Why do you think the most successful people have a hard time relishing in success? Is it because they think the bottom's going to drop out, or they're afraid if they don't keep going, they're not going to win the next award?
I think it's a little bit of both. My mom gave me some really horribly great advice when I was a child, kind of like a blessing and a curse situation where she said, you have to work four times as much to get half. Four times as much to get half as much as someone else, right? Four times as hard to get half as much. Words are hard. But I know that, I'm for a while, I was always trying to keep up with other people. And so when I would win awards, I'd be like, yeah, but their award is shinier, or they've won more, or I need to be the benchmark. I want to be the person on the Hall of Fame. And then I got to the points where I was on Hall of Fames and I was like, well, what's next? And then you're like, well, there's no point. And I think it's at this particular moment in time, thank God for Matthew McConaughey, I'm now only competing with myself. So maybe that's the unsatisfaction. I'll never be satisfied. And I like that. I like that drive, that idea. But I always want to beat me. And me in 5 years is a dog.
God, you in 5 years is only 32 years old. And again,
1 year before Jesus died, brother.
God. And Chris Farley. And yeah, I remember my 33rd birthday party. I used to throw parties for myself, which you don't do anymore. But yeah, I remember having a Jello shot with a girl that used to work for me. And she goes, you're 33, the same year Jesus died. I was like, well, this is the worst year ever. I got to get to 34. Man, and again, you've done all this stuff. Is it even fair to ask you what your biggest challenge has been so far, other than yourself? Like, other than the internal conflict that we all face, like, what's one challenge you could pinpoint that you dealt with as a successful business leader?
I think the biggest challenge is is confrontation for me as a business leader. I think that a lot of times you have to have really hard conversations with people. And I like to live life kind of like in a Tai Chi vibe. I've dealt with a lot of conflict and I just don't really want that energy anymore. And sometimes you have to grab that dark wolf and, rein people in. And I think that is definitely a challenge because I'm not the kind of guy. And especially as a producer, sometimes, people, you give them an inch and they want a mile and you have to rein them in. And you're the person that has to be the bad guy. And I never really liked playing bad cop, but sometimes you have to. And it's like we were talking about earlier. Sometimes you need that balance because otherwise people mistake kindness for weakness. And I am anything but a weak person.
Talk about the Tao and all these things. How many books do you read a week?
Bro, none. I have dyslexia and
Really?
books freak me out. Yeah.
All right. Well, then here's a follow-up question. If there was a book written about you, what would it be called?
Woo! You'd think I would have thought of that. That's a great question. What would it be called? It would it would be can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it'd be called Fame and it would be in the font of Dare. The like Dare, like the Dare shirt, and it would say Fame on it, but it would be called All My Enemies.
Oh.
But the book would be about entirely dedicated to basically me because most of my enemies are myself, like you said,
It's just 500 pages of Ren, literally.
Yeah.
Like this guy, I hate this guy, and then by the end you come full circle. Like I love me, and the last page is a mirror, right? Oh, like that.
Wow,
there's a
that's
thing.
actually genius. I love that.
Well, this is recorded. If you steal it, I get royalties off of it.
I'll give it
Okay,
to you.
let's talk a couple cliche business ideas and life ideas. What is part one? The best advice you've ever received?
Mm, a random 4th of July. Picture it, bungalow, Los Angeles. All right. If you know, you know. We're hanging out with this random group of girls. And one of those people, my favorite people in the world are strangers and best friends. You know, they're the people that know you the most intimately. And this girl and I never knew each other. We're having a 5-hour conversation about life. And she gave me this advice. She said, so you can create your own heaven, so you can create your own hell. And I've always remembered that, you know, just as you can like do something positive, you can also do the same thing. So keep your mind focused on the creation of good.
That's the deepest advice we've ever got on the show. We have to follow up with what's the best advice you could give someone. You can't use the best advice you've received. What's the best advice you would give somebody?
Best advice I would give someone is there's no such thing as one great person. Let me explain. Like the great man theory. So like Jesus, Shakespeare, Martin Luther King, these greats.
Ren Weeden.
Not yet.
Not yet.
These people, Van Gogh, even right, people who were long dead before they were famous. They didn't exist by themselves. They had apostles, they had troops, they had people with them, and oftentimes history makes you believe that these one individuals are so great, and it creates this like disassociative and this like imposter syndrome that I can never be this person because how do I achieve this level of greatness? When in reality, if you just exist in yourself and you got the cool homies and your crew's like lit, you know, that is what greatness is. It's community.
So what you're saying is, I heard something a while back that you're a product of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, and you believe in that, and you believe in having accountability and people that are going to keep you humble, strangers, friends, etc. And that's how you live your life.
100%.
I like it. Describe yourself in one word that I have not used.
Verbose.
Golly. I don't even know what that word means. What is verbose?
It means I have a lot of words. I talk a lot.
All right. The last question. Now that everyone knows enough about your story to become a fan like we are, what is the best way to support you?
To support me, come listen. Remember my name, and when you do, come witness some cool. To be honest with you, you know, I don't want any follows. I don't need anybody's money. I mean, I like money, but that's cool. What I want you to do is I need people.
So what's your Instagram name?
It's The Renaissance, like Megan Thee Stallion. So THEE Renaissance, because like Ren, like short like Ren, right?
I like it.
Yeah.
And everyone's
so if you want to follow, that's lit. I'm not, but what I really want is eyes. You know, when there comes a day that I have a project out there, it's out in the world, and we're telling a story, show up and witness some awesome stuff.
And now on the non-professional side, how do we best support you?
Right, every day, collective conscious type shit. If we all keep telling stories, the stories will get better.
Dude, you're an anomaly. You're such a great storyteller, and it's got to be, again, it's got to be so self-conflicting where your problem is that you're good at everything that you try. And that to me is an experience I never had, but for real. And I think that as you get older, your biggest obstacle is going to potentially be prioritizing all the things that you're great at. And that's not a bad thing. I'm excited to meet the person you eventually end up with, because they're gonna hold you accountable in a way that you didn't know was even possible, and then you're gonna experience life to a whole new degree. But man, you're awesome. I'm glad to call you my friend. I love that we met through the world of work, but then quickly became legitimate friends. So
No, don't worry, buddy.
Any closing words for all of our friends that are watching the At Renaissance happen right now?
No, not really. Besides, this is a great podcast.
Yes.
Keep listening. I've listened to a bunch of other episodes. It's really fun.
Awesome.
I love Rogers.
I love you.
And keep on keeping on.
I love it, man. Great job.